Hey everyone, my name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at some I Don't Work Here Lady stories, so sit back, relax and enjoy. It's not my job to haul scrap metal at night, but I did it anyway. It was around 9 PM. I had just sat down on the couch with a cup of tea after an hour-long struggle to get my 6-year-old boy to bed. All of a sudden, there is a tremendous noise out of the front of my house. It sounds like the world is ending, a metal apocalypse. I leap up and run to the front window and squint out into the darkness of my usually quiet blue-collar suburban street. There across the road is my neighbor Johnny. He is dragging 12 feet long metal beams along the sidewalk, resting one end on the top edge of a big cage trailer, then trying to slide the beams down and inside. The noise is unbelievable. I watch for a couple minutes in disbelief and growing anger as I notice about 50 more metal beams stacked behind him. This is not going to finish up anytime soon. Then, to top it off, my son wakes up and starts making a fuss. I grab a piece of paper and write an angry message at Johnny in big block letters. My neighbor Johnny is profoundly deaf, hence the written note. He has lived in that house for all of his 50 years, and alone since his mother died a decade ago. He hasn't done so well by himself, I think. His house has fallen into disrepair, and he has hoarded so much scrap metal, it has filled his property and flowed over the outside of his wall, encroaching on the sidewalk. I know the mess drives other neighbors crazy, but I don't particularly care. Makes me feel less guilty about not mowing my lawn as often as I should. Apart from the eyesore, he's never bothered me in any way. I've barely had anything to do with him at all over the years, to be honest. At 9 PM last night, however, I was spitting mad. Another huge boom echoes outside. Fantasies of physical violence flash through my mind. The blood rage takes me. I grab my angry note, put on my slippers and storm out the door in my pajamas, straight over to him. I am a tall, heavily built, pretty mean-looking guy. Johnny is about 5'5" and looks like a shrunken version of Zach Galifianakis. My appearance startles him and he looks up at me with a worried face, still holding one end of a metal beam, sweat running down his cheeks. I am about to unleash on him. I look down at the small, hairy, deaf hobbit man in front of me. I look back across the street at my son watching us from behind the screen door. I look at the angry note in my hand. My anger evaporates and is replaced by something else. I feel ashamed. I consider he's been deaf since birth and may not even realize how noisy he's being, and I feel even more ashamed. I shove the note in my pocket before he sees it. I point to my chest, then do a weightlifting motion with my hands. His face brightens and he nods excitedly. I walk over and grab one end of a beam. He grabs the other. I start helping him haul these 90-pound metal beams into his trailer. After 20 minutes, I'm breathing hard and we finally get the last one in. I feel him squeeze my arm. He's smiling up at me and mouths thank you, the only word we exchange the whole time. I nod and go home. A couple minutes later, I'm in the bathroom washing the dirt and sweat away, and my son comes in. He's angry and confused, like a disappointed mob that didn't get to watch the hanging they were promised. "Why didn't you shout at him, Daddy? You should have taught him a lesson. He's an idiot." Idiot being the strongest word in my son's vocabulary. I sit him down on the couch and put my arm around him, cuddle up. I talk to him about the different ways I could have handled that situation, and about neighbors and helping, and being kind. and about how you meet all types of people in your life, and the story of the scar by my eye, and how much I regret the times I've been aggressive in my life. He's silent afterwards, and seems to be in deep thought as I carry him back to bed. I drove past Johnny today and he waved and did a bicep flex at me. Like, hey, aren't we the two metal-hauling muscle men of the street? I couldn't help but chuckle. That's definitely not an I don't work here lady, but it's so wholesome I've just gotta read it anyway. Like, that guy taught his son a really good lesson that day and he took the right choice. $15,000 instant karma. The other day, these two older European women came into my section of the department store I work in and brought up a coat from a different part of the store, asking me to price check it for discounts. I kindly explained that I can't be sure of the price if there's no discounts on it, since my section of the store isn't actually working for the store, we just rent out space in it. So I can't be sure of any deals they have if they aren't in the system. I then told them they can go to the main service desk, less than 20 feet away from my section, and they can give the most accurate price. They immediately got very angry, calling me stupid, screaming at me, and saying I didn't know how to do my job. I spent 10 minutes explaining in every way I knew how that I can't be sure if there's any discounts on it because we are a separate store, just located inside of the department store, so I/everyone that works there doesn't have knowledge of all the sales going on the other sections, because we don't need to. They continue to refuse again and again to walk the few feet to the service desk, and the one doing most of the talking and yelling threw, yes, overhand threw, the heavy coat at my stomach and told me to hold it for her, then walked away. I stuck the coat on a rack next to our station because the coat wasn't our merchandise and I didn't care what happened to it after that day. They then proceeded to come back 30 minutes later after wandering around the store, and the one that threw the coat at me was screaming and crying, freaking out, saying that she'd lost her 24-carat solid gold diamond ring in our store. I'd noticed the ring the first time I saw her. It was a huge rock. She started screaming for me to please look for it because it's worth $15,000. It's a prized possession, etc. I glanced around and said, I'm sorry, but I have no idea where it is and haven't seen it. She told me it was my fault since she lost it, then her and her witchy sidekick literally ran around the store for 5 hours and never found it. It's been almost a week and I asked the general manager of the department store if they found it, and nope, it's gone. I was about to say it might have been inside the coat, but the person said no, there was nothing in the coat, so I don't know, someone probably just took it. Stop! You can't leave the tour! Never mind, you work here. In the late 1990s, I was a young college student working as a summer intern at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, where Mission Control is. I worked in a building that had lots of offices and labs for programmers and electrical engineers in the front, a big industrial space, a maze with lots of pipes, catwalks, warning labels, with a huge vacuum chamber in the center, and then me in a closet at the back of the building that had been transformed into an office. Each day, I would go out to lunch and make my way through the maze. One day early in my internship, I discovered lots of people taking pictures of the vacuum chamber and making their way out of the building. I merged into the crowd and went out the building with them. They continued going straight and I made a left to head into the cafeteria. About 50 feet later, I hear someone shouting, "Come back! You can't leave the tour! You could be charged with trespassing!" I turned around and saw a young woman yelling at me, and then I realized all the people were getting into a tour tram. but then she was able to see I was wearing a badge and said, "Never mind, I didn't know you worked here." After lunch, I talked to my boss, and she explained that Space Center Houston, a museum nearby, ran tours, and our building was one of the stops. And she thought it was funny that they thought a tourist was trying to escape. For the next few weeks, I would delay leaving for lunch if a tour group was also leaving the building, so that I wouldn't be confused for a tourist and get yelled at. But then later, I started deliberately merging into the group and would then start to run into the cafeteria. When I would hear a shout, I would explain or show I was an employee. After a week or so of this, all of the tour guides knew of me. I wonder if I got a cool nickname, and stopped getting alarmed. But I could still hear the tourists make a commotion, and that made it worthwhile. My first impression of OP was, oh, they don't like the confrontational situation, they don't want to do that, that's why they're avoiding. And then they're like, oh, I started doing it on purpose, and I guess they like it. I almost got in trouble with a manager I've never worked under. So a few months ago, I stopped working at a large chain retail/grocery store. I had worked there for around 2 years. They don't necessarily have a set uniform. Each department wears something slightly different, but still with the store logo. Sometimes if you're just filling in or are a new starter or temp without uniform, you can just wear smart clothes, but still with a name tag. Cut to earlier today. I had just been to an interview, so I was wearing somewhat smart clothing, blouse and black trousers, and had popped into said store for some groceries on my way home. I'm only planning on getting a few things so I don't take a basket. I'm a bit of a neat freak when it comes to stores, so as I was looking for products, I'd also straighten the shelves a little. You can't tell me nobody else does this. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman approached me and asked where she could find hemp milk. Oh, sorry, I don't work here, but I believe it's in aisle 24 or 26? Her, already annoyed, "Listen, I've had a busy day and I don't have time for your games. I can see you straightening shelves, you work here. Now, take me to the hemp milk, it's for my daughter's husband. He's got a milk allergy and I just want some hemp milk." I understand, but I don't work here. Her, loudly, obviously irate, "Stop messing with me, you fat cow. I've seen you working here. I just witnessed you straightening the shelves. I've told you I've had a busy day. Now take me to the milk so I can go home." I honestly don't know where it would be. I'm sorry, but I need to get home myself. I move around her to carry on with my day, but as I do so, a manager I don't recognize walks down the aisle. The lady screams at him about me not helping her. I turn to him to explain that I don't work there, but before I can say anything, she's shouting and pointing at me, and there are customers around us watching what's going on. The manager is obviously new to the store, and is likely embarrassed at the other customers looking at us, so asks the lady and I if we could come to the back of the store. This is normal, there's a couple of security rooms at the rear of the store for interviewing irate customers and staff that have broken rules, lost money, etc. I try to explain through her shouting that I don't work there, but follow along anyway. The manager asks the lady to wait in one room whilst he opens the door to the next one and waves me inside. Before I can sleep, he starts saying that as a new starter, I should be trying to make a good impression on the company, and that I can expect to be fired for ignoring and being rude to a customer like that. Before I've entered, one of the supervisors I used to know well comes into the hallway the rooms are on. It connects the shop floor to the colleague toilets, and sees me. He immediately starts chatting, asking how I am, etc. He then realizes I'm going into a security room and questions it. I explain that a customer thinks I'm being a rude employee and that I haven't yet been able to get a word in edgewise to explain to this manager that I don't work here. The old supervisor immediately starts laughing at the predicament, saying that I left months ago, and the manager, still holding the door, flushes bright red with embarrassment. He starts apologizing profusely to me, stating that he's new here and hasn't had the chance to meet the colleagues properly. He even offers me vouchers. Luckily, I'm in pretty good spirits and laugh it off. Poor guy seems stressed beyond belief. I left to go to the shop floor as he went in to speak to the customer. So I don't know how she took the news, but hopefully he came out alive. For someone who was saying, "Oh, I just want to go home," she seems to be doing a lot of arguing, like, just go find it yourself. Wow, those two videos look really appealing. I'm gonna have to click at least one of them. Right guys, click one of them if you want to see some more stories.